Exits are there, and there'll probably be a hole the shape of me here. Wow.
Oh my god.
She was.
Who?
People who set this up, they could have charged her some picture.
Wow, that's cool. Make us sign the poster. What? The guys behind us, they're like, make us sign the poster. No, I'm not signing the poster.
I'm just gonna get her when she comes in. So sad.
It's her.
She comes to them.
Oh my god.
I think they're gonna show a video or something.
Take a video, Mom, take a video.
Wait, I think they're gonna show something because the thing's there.
I took a lot of Adventure Time stuff. Just
What?
Got a picture of the room.
Oh.
Okay.
oh, okay.
So awesome.
A little bit of room here. People want to come sit on the floor in the front of the projector. You're already sitting down. What are you doing?
No, only who can sit.
Move. Excellent. Cool. Yeah, we have a lot of people here. We're not letting any more in. And I'm putting a 5-to-2 ratio. So 5 people leave, only 2 more will come in until we're a bit more safe. Wow. You do know she's in a group panel tomorrow as well on the main stage. So unless you're not going to be here tomorrow like some of my friends aren't, unfortunately. So my name's Damien. I'm just moderating in stage 4. This will be the toughest crowd yet. When you ask a question, you're going to have to speak up. Obviously with more bodies in here, if you haven't got a microphone, which none of you do, the sound will deaden a little bit. But the acoustics are pretty good in here, so we should be fine. I believe our guest of honour is about to walk in the door. Excuse me. There's no need for an introduction. Shh. Now we'll just turn the industrial fan down. Luke, I am your father.
Fan on. Yeah.
I'll keep it on 1 so we can hear. Well, this is streaming live. Right now there are...
We turned to the cat off too.
Yeah, you can turn it on as loud as you want. It's so hot in here, right?
What do you like that?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
You're on the end.
How does that work? Is it stealing my soul?
I seem good.
One little second at a time. Awesome. Thank you so much. I totally did that thing where I thought this was like another panel. This is what we get in our heads where I was like, okay, that's the panel of someone really popular. It's still going on. I'll have to wait outside. Everyone will leave. 3 people will come in to see me. And I'll be like, hi. And that's not what happened. This is for me. I can't believe it, you guys. I'm so thrilled to see you. I'm going to stand up because, come on, or at least sit up here, right? Because so I can see everybody a little bit better. Is that better? Thank you so much for coming to the panel. And I feel like we've all maybe been buried alive. But we've been buried alive with 1 fan.
No, you've got about 100.
Oh, I know that was too easy of a joke. Well done, sir. Again, feel free to turn the fan up. But yeah, I can turn this right over to you. I'm here to answer your questions as best I can. I always say when I do panels like this that I wish Mike and Brian were here because they're the real geniuses behind the show. I'm just an emissary. I'm very lucky to be able to travel out here and represent the show, but I show up and just do the best job I can with what I think are like the greatest scripts in not just animation but on television in general. I think the show is so spectacular, and it means so much to me that you guys feel the same. So anything that I don't know the answer to, I'll try to get that question over to Mike and Brian and figure out a way to tweet it out or something, because I know that there's like origin story stuff that they can, they handle better than I do, because they're the people who conceived of it. But why don't we start with some questions, if anybody has any. Otherwise, boy, I'll start like singing songs that have nothing to do with me, like Billy Joel and stuff. What? Sing the I'm not gonna sing the unicorn song. I forget too. There's a crossover, like the other stuff I've done, like that one song that some people, that I did as like a joke. That now as people have like drawings of Korra singing us a song about lady parts. But yeah. So question. Can I don't know how much of the camera is covering, but I'd love to just like come to people too if I can. Reach out a little bit.
No, you don't want to go in.
No, I can't go in. I do like to. I do really like to. Raise your hand if you have a question. Anyone? And I'll try to repeat the question too. My forever girl. Would you like to start? Can I say which? Oh, mornings are evil. Mornings are evil. I don't even feel that way in real life. This is where we strip away the mask. You find out Korra might think that, but I'm kind of a morning person. Gross, huh? Sorry. Who else? I just saw a couple other hands. Yes, Scary.
What's the personality of the voice actors of Mako and Bolin?
What's the personality of the voice actors of Mako and Bolin? So we're talking about PJ Byrne and David Faustino. They're both wonderful. They're so great to travel with. I always wish that they came out and did some of these events I do by myself, and some of them I do with them. They're so much fun. What can I tell you about David is super cool. He has a record label. It's funny because, and Mike and Brian have said this too, that they couldn't have known when we got cast as the parts that there would be elements of our personality that would really kind of reflect the characters on the show, but that as they got to know us, they were like, oh, it totally makes sense that we ended up casting these people that we cast. I would say the most, that's true most for PJ. Mike and Brian have been known to say that they just think that PJ is Bolin now and Bolin is PJ because he does a lot. He does more of the improvising when we're recording, whereas I stay really. I come from an improv background, but I stay pretty. I just stay to the script with Korra, but PJ they let play a little bit more, and so the goofy things that come out of his mouth, they end up being animated. I always like to use the example of when Bolin gets onto Naga in the first season, very early on in the first season, and Naga's galloping through the streets of Republic City, and he's holding on this way, and Naga's face is right there, and he goes, "I want to be on your back!" That was totally improvised. That was not live. He just saw it happening, because, we record the script as it exists, and then it goes away for a really long time, and we kind of forget all about whatever was happening in that story, because we're on to recording something much further along. And then a year later it comes back, because it takes such time and effort to do that gorgeous animation and to score it with a beautiful soundtrack and all this. And so when it comes back, we get to see little snippets of episodes when we do ADR, which is that we're recording additional dialogue. And that's when we record the fight sequences, because they're not going to have us make a bunch of sounds until they know that it matches the picture. So ADR for us, in that case, for example, PJ was brought in. I think all he was supposed to do was just be like, ah, 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 ah. And so he was trying, but the way that it was done, he could manage to squeak in some real words. And so he did that, and they just loved it, and they left it in. So I love stuff like that, where it's a kind of behind the scenes stuff where that's what was an answer about the whole recording of the show and not just about the characters. And then I think for me, I feel I have all of Korra's bad qualities, and I wish I had more for good ones. But yeah, there's a real similarity actually to the characters, I think. And J.K. Simmons, who plays Tenzin, I think also has that sort of attitude. Like he's very cool. You know, he's like the hardest working guy in show business. He's in everything, and he shows up and just super mellow and calm. And then I'm like this. I actually have more of a Berlin energy around him because I'm such a big fan. And I'll just be like, JK, what's going on? It's great to see you. And he's just like, how are you, Jim? Yeah, like he kind of is like over it, but he's still like super sweet. So yeah, so it's funny when you see that stuff kind of come to life. And you're like, great question. Yes. Hi.
Could I give you a piece of paper and say what's on it?
Can I say yes after I read what's on the piece of paper instead of before? All right, let's hope I can handle it. Wow. A lot of you were like, hey, you love your mama jokes. Why aren't there more of those on the show? I'm sure many of you have felt that way. So, for all of those of you who feel that, I think those are called the dozens, actually. I don't know why I know that, but here's an example of one that you will never hear on the show. You will only hear exclusively inside this panel. Your mom is so ugly, even a firebender couldn't make her hot. That burns. Literally. Okay. Oh, yikes. I don't like making fun of anyone's mom.
So what's the low point of your career today?
The low point in my career? That's not it. That's definitely not it. Please, I dressed up as a dollar bill for a commercial, so this was hardly a low point. Who else has a question? I'm going to go over to this side just because I was hovering over here. Yes?
What's the hardest thing about playing Korra?
What's the hardest thing about playing Korra? Oh my gosh. There's like only good stuff about playing Korra, so it's really hard to answer that. Truly, like that's the most amazing job in the world. I never ever take that for granted. I'm so lucky. The hardest thing I think, well, boy, I guess the hardest thing is for me with the fans, because I know how much you guys love the show and how devoted you are to the show, and especially for people who love Aang's universe. And the hardest thing for me is that I do hear from time to time, sometimes people, even in Melbourne, for example, where I just was, a couple of people waited, and for those of you who are patient enough to wait through the signing line, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know there's a million things you can see at the con here, but people took the time to wait all the way through that line to come up to me and say, yeah, I like Aang, but I don't like Korra. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, Aang's story is amazing. You know, they're very different, and they're like, yeah, I just don't like her. I don't like the show. What were they thinking? And then I find myself like trying to sell them on it. Then I'm like, whoa, what's cool about Korra is, I'm like, why did you wait just to tell me? So that honestly is the hardest thing, is like it's very easy to spend a day talking about how great Mike and Brian are and how amazing, you know, the first series and for me the second series are. But from time to time I do meet people who just don't care for the second one but love the first, and I of course feel like somehow that's my fault. So but that's really the hardest thing. Everything else is golden. Yeah, good question. Who else has a question? Yes, my dear. Do I sometimes come out of the recording studio and have an identity crisis? Yes. Well, I think the recording part, I don't as much as when I see the show. I've told someone recently when the show was just about to air, I had barely seen any of it, and Nickelodeon had like a premiere party, and so they put the show on this huge movie screen, which was really cool. You get very used to seeing it like that. I just saw the beginnings, for those of you who have snuck and seen the beginnings episode from book 2. We just showed it at the New York Comic Con on this giant movie screen. It's like, oh, you could get used to this. This is the way it's meant to be seen. But when they showed the first 3 episodes back to back, I just, by the way, did that. When they showed the first 3 episodes, 1, 2, free. I felt like super weird afterwards when I opened my mouth to talk. I felt like I was borrowing Korra's voice instead of me voicing Korra. It felt like, wow, why would Korra be talking about like what kind of like pigs in the blanket hors d'oeuvres they have at this party afterwards? So, and I also have a podcast that's free on iTunes. It's called the JV Club, and fans of Korra who come over and listen to that, like, I get a lot of tweets where it's like, it took a while to like hear Korra talking about having braces, but yeah. So there's a little bit of a crossover that gets kind of kooky sometimes. It's not like I'm doing some crazy voice, right? I'm not like doing this big cartoon voice that I put on and take back off again. We really wanted people's natural voices. So, yeah. Yes.
Have you got to be any type of vendor? What type of food?
Oh, the old vendor question. If I could be any vendor myself, which one would I be? I usually answer water or fire. Those are my go-tos. I know that I don't have it together enough to be an airbender. I do have Korra's, I think, impatience in that way. It's very hard for me to practice something a lot. I want to kind of be good at it right away. I think I can relate to the Korra thing. I have to work on patience. That's why I write sometimes when I do signings for you guys, I write be belief, because I really have to tell myself that all the time in life. And then fire is just so satisfying. But it's interesting because someone in Melbourne at my panel said, if you were an element, which element would you be? And that was like it's so weird that it's such a similar question, but for some reason, instead of can you bend something, if you were one, just blew my mind. And I was like, well, I'm actually not water, because usually I settle on bending water. I was like, I don't think I'm water. I know I'm not air, again, for the same reasons. And I know I'm not fire, because I'm way too like nice and goofy. And I was like, would I be earth? And I guess I would be. So I think I would choose to bend water, but I think if I were an element, I'm more like Bolin in my own personality, and I think I would probably be earth. So that was a recent like it just blew me away. And yes, I do think about these things just like you do. Yes, shirtless man. The only person who's comfortable in this room right now. I have a scarf on. Why am I not taking it off?
My question is, how did you get into voice acting?
How did I get into voice acting? Well, I had done a little bit of voice acting in San Francisco, which is where I lived before I moved to Los Angeles, but not too much. And when I moved down to LA, I had started working on camera a lot. And one of the agents that I had was sort of my commercial agent. It's a very boring story, but it's the truth. I wish it could be like a magical fairy flew out of the sky and gave me my first job. But I had always dreamed of being, like many of us. I grew up on cartoons. I grew up loving puppets. I just loved, Sesame Street and Muppets. I just loved the Jim Henson Company so much. And so I just was obsessed with this idea of like getting to somehow be a voice of this thing that didn't look anything like me. And so even though I didn't have a lot of experience, I went to my agent, who also kind of sent people out for auditions for voiceover stuff, and I said, I gotta admit, I don't really have any experience. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I feel real strongly about wanting to do this. And so they had me take some classes, and it really was super helpful, because it's just different than being on camera. And I had to kind of get comfortable with the idea of that. And then they started, sending me to auditions, and I got a few jobs. But this is definitely the one that, changed my life, and it literally radically changed my life.
You've done really well at it.
Oh, thank you so much. Put some clothes on. No. Anything goes. I understand. We're at a convention. Anything goes. Who's next? Sir.
What are your thoughts on the demographic between Korra and Aang?
Oh, what are my thoughts on the demographic between Korra and Aang? Yeah, this is a good Mike and Brian question, but I've been with them when they talked about it, so I feel like I can hopefully represent. They did skew towards a younger audience when they were working on Aang's story, and they also they wanted to do more episodes with that, and so they really had time to kind of play and gear it towards a younger audience. But I think
that for them, they didn't, I always say, and they do too, they don't pull punches. They're not making children's programming, and they weren't even really doing that with Aang, but it was kind of geared towards the younger crowd. And then I think what surprised them was, yes, the show was very successful as it aired, and they had an understanding of it through Nickelodeon as being this really popular kids show. But then what they started to discover was this whole other wave of people who are more our age who were just falling in love with it, and they were so inspired by that and excited by it that they saw this real opportunity to make something that geared a little bit older, that still could scoop up those kids and, I think give them really good exposure to like great values and great storytelling, but also do something that speaks to all of us. And that's what I love so much about Mike and Brian is I just think they don't take the easy way out on anything, on any story. There's so many layers to the storytelling. And that's why I think it comes alive and becomes so interesting and fun to talk about online and in forums and in events like this, because it's just so rich. And the only thing that I guess I understand why they only did 13 episodes or whatever it turns out, roughly that for each book, because they wanted to just do kind of what sometimes the BBC does so well, right? With like limited, very tight episodes where the story arc just like stretches through and there isn't a lot of extra side stories like you get with Aang. But at the same time, these guys are such great storytellers. I would watch hours and hours and hours, even if it was just like, let's flash back to Beibong and Tenzin's romance. Let's see what that looked like, and let's see more Tano, and let's find out what happened to Zuko's mom, and all the things that we all wonder about, is like, we'd all watch it, but the guys are so busy and it takes so long to animate, so, wow, I really can go off on a tangent. I should just talk about the show all the time. So, but yeah, so I think that's the short answer is I think they made something for everyone both times, but they decided to explore a little bit tougher themes, I think, in the second series, which I love. Yes.
Hi, me and my sister watch Legend of Korra online, and we're wondering, is Korra coming back?
Oh, you're watching book 2 online. So you're asking kind of a spoiler question.
Yes, you're asking a spoiler.
I was only seeing book 1.
Yeah.
So I can't really answer it. But your question was, is Korra coming back?
Yeah.
I just can't answer that. I'm just unable to answer that. I don't want to get busted. This is streaming live. Who knows who's watching? I answered you already, so I'm going to beautiful red hair and hat. The question was, did I feel I needed to be very familiar with Aang's story before I started recording Korra? Well, luckily I was a fan of the show, so I didn't have to do a lot of research. But I guess the answer is, in many ways, no, just because they created a show that you can start fresh from. So they took great care to do that. Some people have still never seen the first series. I think it's a shame. I mean, they have something to look forward to. But I think they did a really good job of just creating this whole new, fresh world. But of course, I think they're amazing. So I recommend everyone see both. But good question. Yeah, very, very legitimate question. You in the back, sir. Oh, yeah, I was pointing to blue shirt, then we'll go red shirt, then I'll pop back over here.
You touched that there was some crossover between your voice and Korra's voice, but is there actually anything that you did specific kind of channel for?
Yeah, so the question was that there's very real crossover, like a complete, a total overlap between my voice and Korra's voice. Is there anything I do? Yeah, I mean, is there anything I do to differentiate the two, or is there any kind of mindset that I get into when recording? And I would say about that yes, because of the storytelling in the scripts. I mean, if I had to go into the booth and read off like my own grocery list, I don't know if I could be like, how would Korra read the word broccoli? You know what I mean? Broccoli's very good for all of us, everyone. But I think because, immediately I sit down and I'm talking about, I'm living in the world that I'm living in, I think there's definitely something that happens. I mean, I feel like I pitch my voice a certain way, and as me, I'm just like, I'm way up here, and then I'm like way down here. And Korra, I think, is a little more. Her voice is a little smoother because she's less of a dork. 99% of like my voice comes from like me being like a big bubbly dork. But so I get to like, she's cooler than I am. You know, she's definitely cooler, and she's definitely got more attitude, and she definitely gets quickly annoyed by things, maybe more than I do. So yeah, and I've been asked, like, was there anyone who inspired you when you came up with a voice initially to audition? And I didn't think this then, but I realized through the course of the auditioning process that I was kind of reminding myself of someone, but I couldn't think of who. And I mean, you guys have read this online, but I realized that I was kind of imagining like a young Christina Ricci, like when she was a teenager, kind of the Wednesday Addams, like been there, done that, you know, that sort of attitude of like, I think I know what's going on, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. And kind of sarcastic, and so that was like retroactively, I was like, I wonder if that influenced me and I didn't realize it. So yeah. That's, again, I'll always give a nice long-winded answer, guys. Do not worry about that. I will always talk your ear off. Yellow shirt. I'm sorry. Red shirt. I've made a promise. Red shirt, yellow shirt. Now it's a weird shirt game. Do I have any more? Korra-related guests lined up for the podcast? Oh, great question. Yeah, because I've had Greg Delisle on my podcast. I've had Mindy Sterling on. I've had, who else have I had on? Anyone listen to the podcast? I know you're all going to go out and listen to it. It is free after all. Ray Delisle, who of course plays Azula. Mindy Sterling. Maria Bamford, who plays Pema. Seychelles and I keep trying to record, but we're always in different places. She's, of course, recording and she's filming in Vancouver every other second. And then she was in New York for a long time. I know she'll do it for sure. I mean, that's bound to happen. We just haven't been in the same place at the same time. And then there are some people who are in upcoming books that I think will be doing it. Do you have any requests? Okay. Just tweet me if you do, because, you know, it's pretty easy for me to make that ask and get those ladies on the show. Yellow shirt.
You could choose to go on a date. One of the two brothers.
Yeah, if I, Janet Varney, could choose to go on a date with one of the two brothers, who could I choose? Does anyone know what my answer is going to be? I can't change it up. It's always the same. I just love Bolin. I don't know what to say. All due respect to Mako. All due respect to Mako. But I love funny people. I just love, to me, that's what you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to spend an evening with someone, isn't it so much more intoxicating and delightful and fun if you guys are both laughing about something rather than like arguing about something or out-toughing each other, like, my attitude's worse than yours. I get that. I get that opposites attract, or that, you know, people like the sort of drama of all of that. But yeah, I just think that would be such a blast. Plus, bonus, Pabu, what? Would I even pay attention to Bolin? Or would I just be like, shut up, I'm talking to Pabu? That's the real question. But yeah, I love funny guys, you guys. Yes?
Who's your favorite character in The Legend of A?
Who's my favorite character in A? So the problem is that A, I'm drawn to, yeah. I just love Grey Delisle, and I love her work so much, and I love her as when she does evil characters or misunderstood characters, as some of you like to argue. So I lean towards Azula, but then I also love Aang because I really love everything he has that Korra doesn't, you know. So I'm very inspired by this idea and this idea of the sort of reluctance to take on the responsibility, because I think in some ways he's right to, you know, he's so right to be reluctant, whereas Korra still has so much to learn but is like, I got this, you know. So it is sort of also that, like, I really, really admire what she lacks,
because I want her to get there. Yeah, great question. I just in case, because I know we answered before. Yes, you.
Where do you see, like, without giving any spoilers yet, where do you see the series going? Like, maybe after?
Oh, where do I see the series going without giving any spoilers?
Like, your opinion.
In my opinion.
Without,
Well, it's hard to. I like that you're trying to give me an out so that I can give spoilers, but be like, you guys, Nickelodeon, what? I'm just giving my opinion. Like, no, you're recording book 4, Janet. You know what happens. I mean, I guess I have to defer back to things that Mike and Brian have said in interviews before, because I know it's safe. Which is, I think they've been pretty clear about the fact that they really wanted to tell almost 4 distinct stories, about these characters that we meet in the first season, and add characters in addition, which those of you who have snuck the book 2 know that you're introduced to some great new characters. And I think it is very much about sort of how do the external storylines inform and reflect. Man, I'm getting like press conferencey right now. How do we? Yes. No, but how do they inform and reflect Korra's own personal journey? And I think that's something that they've really done a lovely job with. So things that have been hard for her may get harder because you kind of have to. It's that whole idea of like the only way out is through. That's nice and vague. I really have to put myself on the back right now. Yes.
Is there a line that sounds really hard to say, or you got funny bullets for?
Was there a line that was really hard to say?
Yeah.
Sometimes there are certain. I'm trying to think of names that aren't from. Because there was a name in book 4 that like none of us could get right. We just all kept saying it wrong. But I would say lines aren't that hard. It's more like, what do I want to say? Well, for one thing, I really wanted to be able to do my own burp in book 1, and I just can't. I cannot burp on command, no matter how hard I try. So we had to get in like some stunt burpers. That's Brian. I think it's Brian's burp that Korra burps. I think it's is it the noodle one, right? Did she burp in the noodle? I love those noodles. I really want those noodles like in real life. So yeah, the guys were like, Brian and then Justin, who's a sound engineer, they basically took every soda that was available and mixed them all together, almost like you would imagine like Willy Wonka, and then just took a giant swig and then just started letting them rip. And I was so mad. I was like, I want to do my own burp, but I came up dry. So yeah, biggest challenge, maybe part 2 of what's the hardest thing about doing Korra, not being able to burp on command. It's super upsetting, very upsetting. Yes. How do I think Korra would have done in Aang's time? Great question. Oh man, Michael, Brian, where are you? I think that she would have just. Oh my gosh, she's so. It's funny too because she's not from the city, so she, as we see her experience of like coming to know the city for the first time, she's fascinated. But she also seems to just get with it real quick, right? I mean, she just immediately wants to start bending competitively, and she's excited about the automobiles, and she loves that the whole aesthetic of the city and stuff. So it's almost like, for those of us who maybe are from a smaller place who have this kind of. It's like we don't know why we feel we don't belong. We don't know why we feel that we're drawn to something different. But I think she kind of was one of those characters. It's like she didn't know what the city would be like until she was there. But then she was there, and she just kind of. You don't see her longing for the countryside, the way Aang might. So she might be kind of impatient, right? In his world, she might be like, everything's moving too slow. Come on, let's. But unfortunately, once again, it's like, oh, Korra, pay attention. You could learn so much from being a part of that world, And maybe book 2 will be a version of that in a way. Yes, back behind where the question just was. What was your Did you just mention the unmentionable? Yeah. I know what that groan means. Didn't see it.
Never will.
Oh, the Avatar movie of who?
Nope. Yeah, good question. Someone over here. Yes, my
M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, what's my favorite animal? Oh, I love that question. Boy, there's some answers in book 2 that I can't give away, but I'm just like obsessed with every creature that you see in book 2. Obsessed. I want a stuffed animal collection of every single spirit that you'll meet. Boy, I mean, Hobble and Naga, man, it just comes down to choosing, and that is just a choice I don't know if I feel comfortable making. I mean, boy, I can't believe I'm about to say it. It depends on one day to the next, you never know. Today it's feeling like Prabhu. Today it's feeling like Prabhu, but like, come on, Naga. Oh boy, that was rough. Boy, it was a great question. It just like bummed me out to have to choose. I gotta get over this. I'm just looking for faces I haven't seen before. Yes, back there. Who? What about Zuko's wife? What about it? What about? Are we gonna see Zuko's wife?
Spoiler.
I just don't know if I'm allowed to answer that. I just don't know. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that. I feel like Mike and Brian would be like, oh, let me answer that. But I never know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. This gentleman thinks they'd be fine with it, so I'm allowed. Yeah. I will say, for those of you who have seen book 2, I wouldn't say that it's a Zuko-heavy series, season. So I wouldn't wait for that in book 2 necessarily. I don't know. That's really that's vague, but I wouldn't say that that's what book 2 is really circling around. Yes, you sir. How much more do we see from kind of Aang's world? None. I think I'm maybe allowed to say. Definitely not 0. There's some great stuff. I can't get into it. Yeah, because then we're really jumping into the future a little bit. But somebody from this side. Let's see. Yes. If there's any place to make an animation movie, it's been discussed. I think it is maybe still being discussed. That came up at Comic-Con. Mike and Brian were asked about when I was doing an interview with them, and they said they definitely would love to do it. They said that it's been discussed. It's not real right now in the sense it's not in the works because we're so busy with just the show. But they definitely said, it's something they'd love to do. So, listen, my fingers are crossed. So they're like, for the movie, Scarlett Johansson will be doing the voice of Korra. No, I don't think they're going to do that to me. Right, guys? Right. Last question? Oh, yes. Oh, no, you may not. Oh, I love when people bring up the question was, what was it like working on Neil's Puppet Dreams, which is completely unrelated to The Legend of Korra. Does anyone know what that is? I'm happy to spread the love if you don't. So I co-created and wrote this series online, which you can absolutely see on Nerdist's YouTube channel, called Neil's Puppet Dreams. I wrote it with some very talented writers that include Neil Patrick Harris, right? So he's the star, and his partner David Burka. And the idea is just something that we had thrown around for a while, which is that whenever Neil dreams, he dreams in puppets. He shares my obsession with all things Muppets and Jim Henson related, and we've been friends for quite a while, and we really wanted to do something with the Henson Company, and so we wrote this show, and so if you want to check it out online, if you like Neil Patrick Harris, which everyone should because he's like the best person in the world, you get to see him sort of. I'm not in it, but you can. I produced it and I wrote for it, and so every time he falls asleep, and a lot of the times his dreams inform the experience he's having in real life informs what the dreams are. And there's some really cool guest stars too, like I don't know if any of you are Firefly fans, but you will see Nathan Fillion.
in one of the episodes. So yeah, so I would definitely encourage you to check that out. Thank you for the reminder. I'm terrible at reminding people about the other stuff I work on. Yes, you back there. Will you ever learn anything about Zuko's mother? I'm still waiting, my friend. I'm still waiting. Yeah.
Comics.
Yeah. Comics. There you go. Good reminder. Good reminder. The comics are awesome. Yes, Mako. I didn't hear any of that, but just for fun, I'll tell you what I think you said, which is not a real sentence. Have you ever been delayed in Wellington? Nope. It's always on time. Have I accidentally given away any spoilers? If I have, I've not been reprimanded for it. I don't think I have. I err way on the side of caution. I think that David is the worst of that in terms of I think that he didn't know he wasn't allowed to say he was doing the show, so I think there was a point where he got busted because he was like, "Yeah, I'm doing the Legend of Korra," and Nickelodeon was like, "No, we haven't announced that yet. No, slow motion, no." So far, I haven't. The only thing that happened to me was that someone told me that season 2 was coming out before it was in America. And so someone asked me that on Twitter, and I had just been told the wrong information. And I was like, yeah, it is coming out in April. And that just spread like wildfire. And then Nickelodeon called me and they were like, it is certainly not coming out in April. So then I had to apologize for that. And yeah, it doesn't feel good. That's why I'm so careful. It doesn't feel good when your bosses are like, Janet. feel kind of bad. Yes.
You mentioned that you've recorded book 4.
Uh-huh.
Having
Haven't finished it. We're still recording it, but yeah.
Having done book 2, 3, were you ever pulled back in to do anything differently? Did you go, whoa, the story's just gone a little bit differently from what you first recorded?
Oh yeah. So the question was because we're recording it far out in advance, has anything changed? Has something changed? And have I had to come back in and have storylines altered? And the answer is no. Those guys, everything has stayed. Once in a while there will be an alternate line that I'll have to come in and record, and the only reason is for they want to clarify something that's happening in the scene. So nothing is. Yeah, it's been very, very streamlined, and yeah, they've just stuck to everything. Yeah, the problem for me is that I get a little bit cuckoo with trying to remember what's going on because I'll come in and do ADR for book 2 for the later episodes that haven't aired yet. So I'm in that mindset, and then something will happen for book 3 where there are maybe something like that where they oh, this was from book 3, you just need to re-record this line or whatever, and then we'll do book 4. So I don't even know what's going on anymore. I'm like, what's happening? Where is she? What's happening right now? So it's a bit confusing. Yeah. Anybody else? Let's see. Just looking, scanning. If you want to keep anybody who hasn't asked a question yet. My dear. Am I a big fan of? Oh, am I a big fan of My Little Pony? I appreciate and enjoy My Little Pony. I wouldn't say. Yeah, I'm more excited about the concept of bronies than I am about the show itself. Have I watched it? Yeah, and. Can I do what?
Korra,
Dear Princess Alessia? Oh, I don't even know enough to know what to. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I like crossing over and talking about other shows, but I'm more of a Doctor Who nerd than that's where I sort of get more. Yeah, in Hamilton, at the Hamilton Con, somebody was dressed up as an amazing weeping angel, amazing. And so I had a series of photographs taken of me where the angel's getting closer and closer and closer as I'm signing autographs. It was really fun. So those are the ones I nerd out about. I'm so excited about all the cast that are here this time. If I could go anywhere in the Doctor Who universe, where would I go? Oh boy, that's a really good one. I definitely not into the future, at the end of time, because that just bums me out. I shouldn't be so lonely, right? It's a lonely feeling. I get excited about the actual historic stuff. I guess I apparently am some sort of history nerd. I love all the Winston Churchill stuff. What do I love? In a weird way, it would just be fun to go, like, I really like, listen, I know that we could really get into a whole debate about this, but I really liked The Doctor and Rose. So I just think it would be really fun to go into her world and like hang out with the two of them. Yeah, I love that whole time frame. Anybody else? Let's go back to, oh, hello, there you are.
Since you're a Doctor Who fan, can you say spoilers, sweetie?
Spoilers, sweetie. Oh, so good. What a great show. Yes. Yeah. I know. What? Could be anyone.
What's it like working with Aubrey Plaza?
What's it like working with who?
Aubrey Plaza.
I still can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Aubrey Plaza.
Oh, Aubrey Plaza. I will tell you. I have worked with Aubrey on other things. I think I have never been in the booth with her at the same time. Our schedules are completely opposite. So Aubrey's wonderful and very funny and great, but I actually don't ever see her for Korra. She's just somebody who is like, for some reason, we never are in the booth at the same time. It's kind of a bummer. I wish my answer were different, but I've worked with her and she's great. Yeah. Yes, my dear. Yeah. The fez has gone on and off and on and on. It's back on.
Have you ever like gone online and Googled yourself and Googled the whole like fandom side of Korra?
No. Have I ever Googled myself and gone to a fandom site or looked at what's being discussed? No, I have not. The fan art I do try to seek out, or I get really excited when people send fan art to me. I love the fan art. I think it's so amazing. I've been given so many amazing things, just, from dolls to buttons to beautiful illustrations. I keep all of it. I've been framing it. I love that stuff so much. And Mike and Brian love that too. People have been hired from fan art. Have I ever done a fan fiction? Have I read one? No. This is the thing. When I start, the idea of going that far into the world, I am so my feelings are hurt very easily. So I'm just a person like you guys. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to get online and I had to like read something, like if I had to comb through and just see somebody be like, I hate Janet Varney, that would ruin my day, if not my month. And I know there are plenty of people out there who do. So I just don't even, I don't want to, you know what I mean? I just like to pretend that everything's happy, rainbows and puppies and My Little Ponies. And that, nobody's out there saying anything mean. But, the internet is also, they're full of amazing people like you, and also full of, trolls who don't leave their homes ever and who are angry. Well, that's very nice. That's very nice. So anybody wants to send something to me where they know, they've already done the filtering and, they want to send me fan art, they want to send me fanfic, they want to send me anything like that, I'll read it. But, I don't want to, find it because I'm afraid of what else I'll see. I'm very sensitive, you guys. Oh, anything else? Anybody else? One. Oh, now we are down to one. Oh, boy, this is rough. Yes.
If you had, just based on the scripts that you've seen, if you could only watch one season of Korra, which one would you pick?
Oh, I could never pick. So the question was, if I could only watch one season of Korra, which one would I pick? I don't know. I'd almost rather watch none, because I would then never know what I was missing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm crazy about book one. Crazy about it. But I love book two. I can barely remember book three because that's wedged right in between the doing book two and it starting to air and then being in the middle of book four. Yeah, I couldn't choose. It's a great question. I just am completely incapable of choosing. It's like choosing one of your children. You wouldn't ask somebody to choose one of your children. She would. That's fair. Okay, yeah, we can still do one. Anybody who I haven't talked to yet? Anyone I haven't talked to yet? Anyone? Oh, okay. Yes.
You doing the voice acting, does that subtract from any of the enjoyment when you watch the actual series?
Great question. Does being a part of the voice acting side and the recording affect my experience of watching the series? I'm very delighted to say the answer is not at all. It doesn't affect it in a negative way at all. That's what I love about doing cartoons, is that, I do not feel that way about on-camera stuff. If I'm watching a movie I'm in, or if I'm watching a series I'm on, I get really tense. You can just feel yourself getting really tense and like waiting for some moment where I'm gonna be like, oh, why didn't I make that face? Or like, it's hard. It's easy to be self-conscious. I think some actors are really good at that. The great thing about voice acting is that it just is, to me, it feels like magic. And that is kind of why I do feel like, oh, am I talking in Korra's voice now? Or like, am I borrowing that person's voice? Or we just have a similar sounding voice? But I'm able to totally disconnect and just enjoy the storytelling and just love the show as just a fan. And that's such a gift, because it would be the worst if I couldn't enjoy the beautiful, beautiful show that these guys have created. So, and I think I will end on that note because it's super positive. I'm just such a fan of the show, and I'm so lucky to be on it, and I'm so lucky to spend time with you guys. Thank you for putting up with it. Heaps and I'm here tomorrow doing the signing, and then I have a signing at the show from Peak Hour back downstairs. I'd love to meet those of you I haven't met yet, and have a great time with the rest of the con.